So I have here the Canon 1014 XLS, which is a Super 8 camera that was made around 1979 and is considered to be one of the best Super 8 cameras that was made. I recently rented it for a project where I wanted to get some a vintage Super 8 feel, and I took this footage here. To be honest, I was a little intimidated at first because there's not a lot of information online on how to use this specific camera, and there's a lot of buttons and functions on here that can look quite intimidating at first. Overall, it's quite simple to use, so you shouldn't feel intimidated. When I first got the camera, it came with the handle up like this. And so this makes it a little bit more compact and easy to travel with. But to lift this handle down, all you do is just slide this knob up and bring it down like so. Moving on, I'll just break down what some of these functions do and kind of how I set my camera up to shoot the way I did. So starting out, you put the film in your camera. Over here, you want to decide if you're going to shoot tungsten, which is right here, or if you're shooting outdoors, daylight, you would want it on here. So I shot daylight, so I kept it on this icon. You decide whether you're shooting indoors or outdoors, adjust that accordingly, and you'll want to take the cap off your camera, obviously, and at first you'll want to look through the viewfinder. Now, if the viewfinder is over to here on the C icon, and you look through the viewfinder, you're not going to see anything, and that's because it's closed. And that's just mostly to protect the film when you're not using it. In this case, we'll want to look through it, so we're going to switch it to open. But just be mindful that when it's sunny out, especially, and this is open, light can get in the side, get through the eyepiece here, and it can expose your film. So just be aware, you should either protect the eyepiece when you're outside in bright sunlight especially, or just close it down. So when you're shooting it, you want to open, obviously, and first thing you want to do is turn it on. Now this camera takes 6 AA batteries, which you can open up right here. I'm not going to take them out, but I think you can figure out how to put those in. Just slide them in there to the handle, turn the camera on. I would just be conscious of turning this off when you're not using it, because I've heard that it eats through the batteries pretty quick. I've used it on 2 rolls now and I haven't changed the batteries yet, so it's been pretty good so far. But and you can check the level of your battery here. It'll also give you a notification in the camera when you're running low on battery. I'm looking at the manual now, and according to that, it says a fresh set of batteries should provide sufficient power to film 7 sound cartridges or 10 silent cartridges when filming at normal temperatures. So to start off, we turn on our camera, and you look through the earpiece, and you'll see over here, you'll see right here, this is the trigger that you're going to push in when you want to start rolling. And I'll just there's no film in here, but just to show you. Now, right now I have it on R. It's kind of hard to see this, but there's a little switch here that's R and RL. When I first tried this out, I had it on RL, and I didn't realize that when you click this down, RL locks it. So RL will lock it down so you don't have to keep your finger on it, and it'll run continuously. And to release it, you just press it one more time. R is just you hold it down. Once you release, it stops. Personally, I like to have it on R just because it's easier for me to control how much I'm shooting. The cartridges run out relatively quickly, so you want to be as efficient as possible, but I can understand if you just want to not worry about it. Click it to RL, hold it down once, and then you can just shoot away. Other things to know, you can do sound on it, and here's the jacks for it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Put the mic in right here. There is a shoe mount on top right here where you can put a microphone. Then we're going to flip the camera over and we're going to take a look at the front here. Now, a lot of these controls look kind of complicated at first, but it's really pretty simple. Over here, this section is the audio controls. It's pretty self-explanatory. Honestly, I have never run sound on here, so I'd never use this. But it's probably just like any other system. So to focus, this is the focus ring right here. How I like to focus, I like to zoom in manually using this lever. I never use the top because this is the mechanical zoom in, zoom out. I just like to do it manually. It feels better to me. And I use the split image rangefinder focus aid inside, which you find on a lot of older cameras, not so much anymore. And it's pretty easy to focus for the most part and just zoom out accordingly. And what you see in the rangefinder is what you're going to be recording. So straight away, if it's in focus in the rangefinder, it'll be in focus when you're rolling. Another thing I might add is you can also zoom in using these buttons up here. This is more of a mechanical zoom. And right now it's on manual, which is, these don't work. But the L is like these are speeds. So this is low speed and this is high speed. And W is wide, so that's zooming out. T is telescopic, tight. So I think if you want to, you can experiment with that a little bit. I never use this. I always keep it on M, and I just find it's easier just to use the manual, and it feels better to me, honestly, but that's personal preference. Also, if you click down this yellow button, so if you're toggling around, you'll notice that it stops at 6.5. If you want to do macro, you hold down this yellow button and you can go even further, so it can turn into a macro lens, which is pretty cool if you want to have that option. So by the way, the lens this came with is a 6.5 to 65 millimeter lens. I'm pretty positive this is the standard lens that comes with it. I don't see a way to take the lens off. So yeah, but this should cover all the range that you really need. So getting to some of these buttons here, I always shoot on auto for exposure. If you look through the viewfinder and you hold down the button here halfway, there's an exposure meter in there that will tell you when you're overexposed and underexposed. With regards to the frame rate, so this is the frame rate. So when you shoot in 24, it'll slow it down a little bit. It'll give it more of a slow motion feel. You're going to burn up your film a lot quicker. 18 is kind of the classic Super 8 look, so that's why I keep it on 18 frames per second for the most part. 9 will Nine will speed it up a little bit more. It'll be more jittery, but there are some benefits. 9 will make it seem more jittery, but there are some benefits to shooting at 9 frames per second. One being it's better at low light. So it just kind of depends on the effect you're going for. Again, I like to have it on 18. The shutter angle, just a little side note, at 9 you can film at almost half the light that you can at normal speed, 18 frames per second. So Again, if you're indoors and it's dark, you might want to think about 9, but it does accelerate the subject's movements, and it actually kind of gives it more of like a comical effect. So depends on what you're going for. I like 18, but hey, whatever you want to do. So, and also I just thought of this, but for when you're shooting at 9 frames per second, you cannot run audio. 24, I know you can do audio. 18, I believe you can do audio as well. Don't quote me on that, but I believe you can. You can do slow motion, which is this icon right here, in 24. You cannot do it in 9 and 18, I believe, from what it says in the manual that I read. So now we'll get up to here. This is the shutter angle up here. So daylight, obviously, if you're shooting in daylight, you'll want it on the daylight icon. And I believe the shutter angle is at 150 degrees when it's at daylight. This is this little window icon is a 220 degree shutter angle. So at this position, it's at its widest angle, and it's going to let more light in. So it's better for darker conditions indoor. That's kind of why it has an indoor icon. Again, I'm shooting daylight mostly, so I just keep it on daylight. Now when we go over to here, the O, C, and this little rectangle symbol, these are in-camera transition effects. So I never use these because I just get it processed, and then if I'm going to do some sort of effect, I do it in post. So I never use these over here, but the O and C icons are for fading, and the rectangle thing is for lap dissolve effect. So again, I've never used these before because I just don't really want to, but if you want to choose to do that, then that's your call. Now this dial, I've always left it on the PS, just straight up, because that's the normal setting. This is a filming mode dial, and I believe this is more used when you combine it with the transitions, which I kind of doubt you'll be doing, but just normal straight shooting, I keep it on PS, and I pretty much never touch this. Over here, you'll see the meter for your film, and this just tells you how much film you have left, and I think you'll be pretty surprised at how quickly it runs out. So if you're shooting normally, this is the gauge right here, and obviously you have no film left, and this is full. So, and just remember, if you put your cartridge in and you open it, it'll restart that. So just be aware of that. So now we'll talk a little bit about the film, because obviously you have to put some film in this camera for it to work. So over here, we have our door, and the film I'm using is some film that I got from Pro 8mm store in Burbank. This is about $100 almost altogether. There's a little package deal where you can buy the film and then get it developed there, and there's all sorts of options there to get it developed. What frame rate, and if you want a 1080 HD or if you want a 4K, you can decide that when you go there. But anyway, so this is the cartridge. So I'm just going to open up this cartridge real quick. And here it is. Now I'm shooting daylight, so this is 50 ASA. So you want to kind of decide beforehand what you're going to be doing, because that'll determine what type of film you should get. So this is less sensitive. meant for outdoors. If you're shooting indoors, you would want to do. So if you're doing indoors, you would want to do more of like a 160, which is better for indoors and night. It's just a little bit more sensitive. So this is it. The film is in here, so you don't really need to worry about exposing it. At first, when I didn't know anything about 8mm film, I was a little worried about, exposing it. But from what I've heard, this is it. It's light sealed. I wouldn't, I would be easy on the case just so you don't risk exposing it. But anyway, we're gonna put the cartridge inside here. So we turn our door, we lift the door, and we put this in first like this. So I'll do it like so, put it in, and it just locks in there. Pretty easy. Close the door, make sure you shut it, and that's it. And you're pretty much good to go. You can see through here, well, there's a little window where you're supposed to be able to see what type of film you have in there, but on this label, it doesn't really make a difference. And then to take it out, you just do the same thing, lift it off and take it out. You'll see inside here, you'll know when it's done because it'll say end. Some bright red letters will pop up saying the film is done and you can't really shoot anymore. So I think that's it. Hopefully I covered everything. Again, these are the settings that I use to capture the footage, the example footage that I showed. Doesn't mean it's the only way. I suggest you play around with it and see what works best for you. But I found this is the best way for me to capture the look that I was going for. Obviously, you can get creative with it, and there's probably tons of different ways you can do it. But yeah, hope this helped a little bit, and look forward to seeing what everybody shoots.